Hey guys, welcome back to Supposedly Fun. I'm Greg. Now, I really only recently started this channel. It hasn't even been a month yet, so I didn't really do an introduction to myself when I started. I wanted to see if I was going to keep up with it, and I figured now would be at least a decent time to do that. But rather than just tell you all about myself, I figured the best introduction would be to tell you about my favorite books. So I picked 10, and I'll tell you about them today. Now, I don't usually like doing favorite book lists because my favorite books are very fluid. They change over time. If you ask me tomorrow, I might come up with a different list of 10 books. So what I'm thinking I might do is check in every year with my all-time favorite books and see how the list changes over time, if at all. What I have noticed is that the books that stay in my favorite list have some kind of a personal connection to me. It's not just that they're good books, it's that they spoke to something about me or that was going on at the time, and that connection is probably what really strengthens it, because there are a lot of books that I really love but I don't have that connection with that tend not to make the list. But enough about that. Let's start talking about them. So the first one is Maurice by E.M. Forster. Now, traditionally I have said that Kurt Vonnegut is my favorite author, but I think I'm at the point now where I'm ready to say that E.M. Forster is actually my favorite author. And basically, I read this book when I was in the beginning stages of coming out. I was kind of like tentatively creeping out the closet door, and I started, almost like I was doing research, I started really checking out a lot of queer literature. And that was really hard because so much classic queer literature is just bleak. It's really depressing, very sad. And the reason for that is that you couldn't publish a book about a controversial subject like adultery or homosexuality unless the character in the book is punished for their transgression. So many books that I was reading were the characters just miserable by the end of the book, and that was not really what I needed at the time. And then I found this book, and this book could not be published during E.M. Forster's lifetime because he refused to punish Maurice for being gay. He kind of gives him a happy ending. I mean, it's not entirely a happy ending. By the end of the book, spoiler alert, Maurice has to give away his name, his title, his money in order to pursue his true self. But he's happy. And I think that's the message that I really needed at the time. I needed to know that I might lose some things that are important to me, but I'll still have love in my life, and I'll have other things that will be important, and I'll be okay. So there's a really personal connection there. E.M. Forster is, of course, a wonderful writer. So much of what he writes is about the self and about connecting to other people. You can argue that he has done it better in other books. Stay tuned, because I may have another one of his books on this list. I do. Spoiler alert. But I think this one is the one that always stands out the most to me, just because of that connection that I had with it. Next is The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane by Kate DiCamillo. You may be laughing because this is at best an intermediate level book, but I don't care. I really love this book. I read it as an adult and it warmed my stone cold heart. It is definitely, without a doubt, the book that I gift to other people most frequently because I love it that much. Aside from really great writing, it has wonderful illustrations. It's just a really, really wonderful story. It's about a rabbit doll named Edward Tulane who takes his life for granted, and he's kind of, but not really, cursed, and ends up going on a series of adventures that teach him to appreciate what he has, but also, and the part that really speaks to me, I think, is that he learns the importance of vulnerability and remaining open to goodness and love in the world, even though he's been hurt. And that's, I think, why I give it to so many people. I gave a copy to my foster son at Christmas time, because I just think it's such a beautiful message, and it's a really beautiful way of telling that story. So, I love it. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. Next is a book that was my favorite book for a very long time, without a doubt. It's The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. You may be rolling your eyes, but kind of like Maurice, I read this book at the perfect time in my life. I was a very depressed, passive-aggressively angry teenager. I did not have to read this book in school. I picked it up on my own, and it was just everything that I was thinking about the world at the time. I wanted to get a string and wear this book around my neck so I could show it to people as if it was the Bible and say, this is what the world is like. I loved it so much that I used to reread it every single year at Christmas time, because Christmas time is when the book is set. And I remember, I did this for at least 7 years. So I read it for the first time when I was 15 or 16. Suddenly I'm about 22 or 23, and I read the book, and I remember thinking, oh my god, Holden is an idiot. He's completely wrong about everything. And I actually had an existential crisis about it, because I had a huge debate with myself about whether or not I had grown up or if I had sold out and become one of the people that Holden hates. I really debated that very hard. So this book is one of my favorites, mostly because of what it meant to me for such a long time. I can read it now, and although I don't agree with it so much, I still appreciate it. I do not reread it every year, though. that time is gone. I also really love the relationship between Holden and his sister Phoebe. It's just a really, really sweet sibling relationship in a book. Probably my favorite sibling relationship in a book. So there you go. Now, I mentioned that Kurt Vonnegut used to be my favorite author. I still really love his books. The book of his that I love the most is Mother Night. I really want to reread this at some point, though, because I want to see if it still holds my attention. But I really, really love this one. I love its message. It's about a spy in World War II who is so deeply undercover that nobody in America knows what he was doing. So now the World War II has ended, and he is on trial for war crimes. And he's trying to prove that he was doing it for a good doing what he did for a good reason. And the book is questioning whether or not he is a hero. In order to do good things, he was complicit in doing a lot of bad things. So the theme of the book is laid out pretty explicitly. It's that you are what you pretend to be, so be careful what you pretend to be. And I just really like that message. I think it's very good, and I think Vonnegut does a great job portraying it. Next, we go back to E.M. Forster for Howard's End. This is probably, in most people's minds, the ultimate E.M. Forster book. In my opinion, it probably is. That's fair. Maurice just has that personal connection to me. It's a beautiful book, and I love the message of Only Connect. I think it's so well done, so well written. There's so many beautiful things about this book. It's a clash of ideals between the Schlegels and the Wilcoxes. The movie adaptation is also great. If you really don't want to read the book, see the movie, although the book is better. I just love it so much. Next was my favorite book as a child. I was a big reader as a child already by the time I discovered Roald Dahl, but Matilda kind of cemented me as a lifelong reader, and because of that connection with it, it's always going to be one of my favorite books. Even if it doesn't make a top 10 list, it's always going to be in the mix. I just love it. It's funny, it's sweet. I love the protagonist. I even love the antagonists, her family. I have a lot of fond memories of reading this book as a kid. It's so clever, and his illustration, of course, is classic. So I love it. Next is a book you've already heard me talk about. I think I've recommended it at least twice, maybe 3 times. It's Never Let Me Go by Cosmo Ishiguro. I really love this book. When I first read it, I remember being surprised because it's kind of slow. It moves a little slowly, but he is such a compelling storyteller. It feels like somebody telling you a story. And when somebody tells you a story, they don't tell you a straight narrative. They kind of ramble a little bit. There are little asides. So I really, really marvel at the structure of this book and the way he creates the narrative, because it feels like somebody is telling you a story. And the slow burn way in which he provides details of what's actually happening at the Hailsham Academy it's just amazing. And I think because you really spend a lot of time with the characters, you really get attached to them. So when you get toward the end, it's heartbreaking. And I always remember the impact that this book had on me, because I remember thinking, it's a little slow when I started it, and thinking, I really like this, but I don't know where it's going. And then when I got to the end, I was just floored. I always recommend this book. I love it. I've only read one other Cosmo Ishiguro book, which was very good. It's The Remains of the Day. But this is the one that, to me, will always have a place in my heart. It's maybe because it's the first of his that I read. But anyway, I love it. Have not seen the movie. Maybe someday. But the book is amazing. Next is another book that I've already talked about because I reread it in 2018, which put it on my favorite books of 2018 list. Call Me By Your Name by Andre Osman. Since I already talked about it, I don't want to talk too much about it and take a lot of time on it. Since the movie is fairly recent, you probably know what it's about anyway. It's just that I love it. And my personal connection to this is that this was one of the first books that my husband recommended to me when we first met. And I'm not ashamed to admit that the fact that he recommended it to me and I loved it so much really earned him a lot of points. So it's a great book. Next is The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. This is a very dense book. It's Russian literature, so, you know, if that didn't tell you that it's a very dense book, it is, believe me. I just really, really loved it. Someone recommended it to me. We did a challenge where I was going to tell her to read one book and she was going to tell me to read one book, and this is the book that she told me to read. I'm ashamed to say, if not for that deal, I may not have ever read this book. I loved it. And unfortunately, I don't remember what book I recommended to her, but she didn't like it, and it's a book that in hindsight, I remember not liking it in hindsight when we talked about it a while ago, but I don't remember what it was. But this book is amazing. It's it's a revision of the stories of Faust and Pontius Pilate. It's so well done. It's very clever. I was just spellbound the entire time I read it. I read this 15 years ago, and I still occasionally think about it. So I love it. And the final book in my top 10 for this year is Fun Home by Alison Bechdel. It's another part of queer literature. I read it when it first came out because I loved the angle of the queer angle. And also it's a graphic novel memoir, which I had not read it at the time. Her illustrations are really good. It's a little deep and profound. She can be sidetracked by literature sometimes, but the overall story is so interesting. So in case you don't know, Alison Bechdel grew up in a funeral home. That's what the Fun Home is. Her father was an English teacher and funeral home director, who was also a closeted gay man, and he may or may not have committed suicide. And it's about her relationship with him and how she's still struggling to answer for details about his life and why he kept so many secrets and why he was the man he was, living as he did. And she is able to live as an out lesbian. And so they're so similar, but they're so different. And it's her struggling to reconcile the past and the present. It's so good on so many different levels. I just love it. I can't recommend it enough. So there you have it. My top 10 favorite books of all time, at least as of 2019. We'll see how this list looks in 2020. But I think, at least because of the personal angle, a lot of these are likely to still be on there. There it is. I'll be back again. I have an idea for a video tomorrow, so if you're interested in what that's going to be, subscribe, and until then, happy reading. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, subscribe, or watch some of my other videos. If you've read any of these books and loved them as much as I did, tell me. I'd love to hear it. If you hated these books and disagreed, tell me. Let's fight about it. And until next time, thank you.